News time is 10:18.
Mike Gallagher.
Welcome in. There's a lot happening, and of course, on the political front domestically right now. We've got testimony on Capitol Hill regarding the counterterrorism community, what we can be doing, what we should be doing that we're not doing. And one of the things I want to dive into is a conversation with a first-generation American Muslim whose parents fled the oppressive Ba'ath regime of Syria in the mid-1960s for American freedom. He has emerged as a voice of clarity regarding this very difficult battle we face and continue to face. He's the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Let's welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show on our guest line, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Dr. Jasser, it's great having you on the program today. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Oh, Mike, it's always great to be with you. Thanks for having me back.
One of the pushbacks I heard last night from one of the TV anchors was the insistence of the lone wolf explanation. And you know, we've gone through this already, whether it's one, whether it's five, and that's the attempt to sort of minimize a terror attack that in this case killed at least 22 people by saying, well, it's one person, how bad can it be? Can we talk a little, and that's my inference, incidentally, not theirs, but can you kind of dive into that with me in terms of dealing with the lone wolf minimizing process of terrorism right now?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because there is no bromide, no anesthetic that makes us more defenseless than that type of thought. It's like trying to say that when you're fighting a pandemic of flu virus across the world, that each virus patient has no connection to the other because they're individual viruses. The ideology is the same, regardless of whether it's coming from the Sharia state of Pakistan and its Islamist movements, or the Saudi Wahhabi Islamists, or the Egyptian Brotherhood Islamist movements, or ISIS out of Syria. It's all the same flavor. Islam is in that time of history in which theocracy has not been defeated, and they dominate the establishment of the Muslim consciousness. And by calling it a lone wolf, you know, even our friends at the Cato Institute came out a few weeks ago with a bizarre comparison of what they feel are white supremacist killings versus radical Islamists, and they said the numbers are skewed and it is not as bad. They're really ignoring the fact that we are at a war. It's not just the numbers, it's the fact that the tip of the iceberg is the attacks in London, in Manchester, in San Bernardino, Paris, Nice. The techniques are the same. You look at the numbers globally, you need to add into those numbers the genocide in Syria, whether it's the Sunnis or the attacks against Christians and others done by radical Islamists. This is a global problem, and the fronts in the war in the West are simply an attempt to turn the West into isolationists, to make us turn away and let them fill the vacuums in the Middle East, and ignoring the fact that these are packs of wolves, and making it seem that these individuals are, even by making it seem that they're self-radicalized, or they're radicalized on the internet, it has nothing to do with the local Muslim communities that separate them out, makes us defenseless. We have to connect the dots, that it's not just countering violent extremism when they're going to put on that suicide belt, but months and years before, when they're being told by their imams and by their leadership that they are victims, that the West is the problem, that it's not the religious theology that needs reform, but rather the West that's the cause, and that's what prevents reform.
Let's connect even more difficult dots, and that is the realization that overall Islam has a problem. The Muslim faith has an issue, a problem that those of us who are not Muslim keep wondering how the Muslim world deals with it. And then to compound it, I was sort of rattled by a caller to my show who said, Mike, there's only one way to deal with this. The problem, our enemy is Islam. So if they kill 100, then we need to kill 1,000. We have to take 1,000 Muslims. I said, wait a minute. What about all the peaceful Muslims in the world who renounce and denounce this kind of... He goes, doesn't matter. The only way we're going to stop this is to basically stamp out Islam. Now, of course, I said to him how ridiculous and un-American that would be and how wrong that would be, and you came to mind. I thought, well, I guess Dr. Zuhdi Jasser would have to be eliminated as part of this guy's grand scheme. But what do you say to the American who pushes back that way by suggesting that the problem isn't individuals, the problem is Islam itself?
You know, I have to tell you, we Muslims have to be contrite. I get where he's coming from, but I have to tell you, I'm not expecting him to respect my faith. We have a major cancer and a lot of work to make up. We're hundreds of years behind the West. But I would tell him and any others that feel the religion is the problem, strategically, if we are going to win this war, your best assets in this war are Muslims that are contrite, that realize they have a problem and are willing to lead this. Otherwise, if you devolve into this war of civilizations that the Islamists want, that's exactly what they want, and they'll continue, as President Trump told the Saudis, to kill 95%. We are also victims in this, and the problem is, as much as I'd love to see what the president did this weekend, and he made up a lot of lost ground to shore up the Sunni coalition to militarily get at the ISIS guys, the folks he was speaking to when he was saying drive them out, I was hoping they would all get up and leave, because they are the problem. The Islamic establishment globally is the mafia that is preventing the reform. So I actually, when listeners like yours say what they do, I hope that's to motivate Muslims to realize, until Americans see us lead this battle and recognize that the Saudi regime, the Iranian regime, the Muslim Brotherhood viral Islamists on the ground, we have to confront them publicly. That's the only way to let any bigotry that might exist towards Muslims melt away, because as long as we sit on our hands, Americans rightly are going to want to protect their security and are going to start to connect the dots. And yes, Islamism, the Islamist political movement globally, is a major part of our current faith establishment. We have to dissect that out theologically in our mosques and in our universities and in our teachings. But we can't do that alone. We need a strategy globally, and the free world needs to lead that, to counter not violent extremism, but counter Islamism. Call it what it is, and you will then begin to mobilize the forces of reform from the grassroots, not the leadership that's corrupt that are running these regimes globally.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is our guest. He's the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander as well. You know, I've made an effort today not to politicize this terror attack last night, but I think it has to be said that we have a very different tone and tenor from this commander-in-chief than the one that was in the Oval Office for the previous, the prior 8 years. Many of us believe there was sort of an apologetic tone that President Obama took on the world stage. It doesn't seem like President Trump does a lot of apologizing for the United States of America. Do you agree that there is a very distinct and very notable difference in terms of leadership from these two men on this issue?
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how pivotal that is in winning this war. And when he calls them evil losers, that is important, that these jihadists realize that jihad is a losing battle, no matter where they take it. And the fact that the previous president began and ended most speeches by blaming America, blaming us for the ills of the Islamic world, is absurd. And what that did was feed into the Islamist propaganda that they are going to win this war because it's the West's fault. And when you look, why would a Muslim, and we still don't have the name of the guy who did this in Manchester.
Well, we do. Actually, CBS is reporting his name, and I don't have it in front of me because I don't even want to give it the air. But it's Lance will put it up on the screen. But CBS is reporting his name. 23 years old, and was said to be known to the British authorities.
So it's a known wolf, not a lone wolf. Oddly, a known, as usually happens, a known wolf. And odds are it's not a refugee, but somebody who was probably years in Britain, as most of these have been. And right. Yet they have had hundreds go to fight for ISIS.
Right. Salman Abdel is his name, Abdel. Salman Abedi, A-B-E-D-I. So
until Muslims want more Muslims in Britain want to serve with the British Army than with ISIS, which data shows that's not true.
Right.
We are going to continue to lose this war, and we need to shift those numbers from the ground within the West to get battalions of Muslims that want to serve to defeat ISIS domestically and abroad.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, I very much appreciate taking some time out of your day with us. Please come back and visit with us again, okay? Keep fighting the good fight.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Thank you.